Hey everyone, we're at Donkey Projections. I'm Eric, and we have Lucas as always.
Hey everyone.
Today is October 31st, 2020. Happy Halloween, everyone. We are 3 days from the election. 3 days. Today we are going to be making one of our last presidential predictions before the election, which is crazy to say. I still can't believe how close we are. We are going to be going through, for the most part, competitive states because as we get near and near to the election, those are the ones everyone is keeping an eye at.
I agree. We apologize for our recent inactivity. We've been like extremely busy, but we'll try to push out videos. One today, one tomorrow, one Monday, and probably one on election day too. We'll see. Probably on at the afternoon on Tuesday. But anyways, with that being said, let's get right into it. So I think we should probably go a little bit faster than usual on our like safe states and focus more on the competitive states. So let's just quickly go through them. California is not going red despite the comments. New Hampshire, I'll put that as likely now because that is what we've been seeing so far from the polling data as well as from the demographics. New Hampshire will probably go around like 6 points. It's going to be a bare likely on this one. And then we got the whole Northeast here. No surprises here. New York is also going to be solid, as is Maine's first district, which is more rural, more urban than, or I shouldn't say more urban, but more densely populated than the second district. And then Illinois, I believe that is it for the safe states, and New Mexico. We've recently moved this one back to safe.
Yep.
Yeah, from definitely what we've seen so far, it looks like it's going to be less than 15 points, more than 15 points victory for Biden here. Now, Montana, we're going to keep this one as likely from what we've seen in the data so far, as well as looking at the demographics. We're going to put this one as likely. Idaho, Wyoming, the average, I shouldn't say average, but the typical safe states. Nebraska first, we are moving now to likely, as you saw in previous videos. Kansas is probably going to go under 15 points as well because it's not as deep red as some of the other states are, the other Republican states are. Arkansas is going to go solid. Mississippi is probably also going to be under 15-point victory, but close to it.
Mainly
Alabama,
the African American population. That's a little indicator. And also, yeah, it's probably going to go under 15 points in general.
Yep, I agree. It's probably going to be around 14, 13 points.
Mm-hmm.
Missouri, we are putting it as likely because, again, it is less Republican than some of the other states here. Let's head now into one more. Alaska is also a likely Republican state. And the reason for that is because of the data we're getting here. It's kind of surprising from what we've seen. Don't you agree, Eric?
I do.
7
Absolutely.
points. Wow.
Absolutely.
And at one point, it was a lot closer before, but still 7 points. That's a strangely close margin in a very Republican state. And this poll is kind of surprising. It's an A+ poll, so showing Joe Jorgensen, Libertarian candidate, at 8%. That's actually quite a bit. I think it's definitely going to be less than that. But that's interesting, definitely. So we are going to put this one as likely for now. All right, let's head now into the likely Democratic states. We're going to first do, let's do Colorado first.
All
Colorado has since moved a lot to the left since, the early 2000s or the 1990s, but it is definitely moved a lot to the left. We do expect Joe Biden to win pretty close to, 10 points, somewhere around 10 points, somewhere around there, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that one we are putting as likely.
I
And
believe we actually forgot South Carolina as one of our likely states for the Republican side.
Thanks for saying that. South Carolina, pretty high African American population. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty competitive Senate race, which is quite surprising because South Carolina is usually pretty solidly red, and also the polling data is also showing, closer than 15 points for sure.
Yep.
Just as a side note, we should probably reference our margins here. A safe victory is a victory that's above 15 points. A likely victory is a margin of victory that is between 5 and 15 points. A lean victory is a victory in a state that is between 1 and 5 points. A tilt victory is a win between a tilt victory is a win between 0 to 1 points, or less than 1 point. So that is, for a side note, for your reference, that is what our numbers are, the indicators we're using here. All right. So let's go through Nevada now. Eric, do you want to talk about Nevada?
Yeah, so it did go to Hillary Clinton in 2016 when she was versing Donald Trump. And right now, Nevada is looking pretty stable. The polling average is staying right about 6 points, I believe, maybe 6.5. Biden did stop here a few times. Yeah, it kind of drooped a little to 5.8, but it's a bit up and down in that general area. Biden, once again, as I said, has been campaigning here multiple times. He's made sure to reach out to all the demographics of Nevada while he campaigns. So I think it's pretty predictable that it will go in around 6 points.
Mm-hmm.
A plus pollster puts it at 6, and there are some other pollsters there that are not as good, but even then show Biden up, such as Trafalgar, a right-leaning pollster.
And just as another note here with Nevada's polling, a lot of the times, for some reason, pollsters tend to underestimate Democrats' performance in Nevada. For example, 2016, Donald Trump was predicted to win the state, and in 2018, I believe Jackie Rosen was actually predicted to lose the Senate race here. And that is kind of interesting. So I think it probably will be above what the margin right now is, which is around 5.8 points. So we're going to put this one as likely Democratic. And the last likely state, I believe, is the state of, or there's another one, Virginia. Virginia has moved a lot also to the left recently. In 2008, I remember, reading the articles about it, how Barack Obama winning the state of Virginia was the first time since 1964 that the state turned blue. So it is a recent Democratic state, but it has been looking quite good for the Democrats right now. The GOP is not done good here. And let's just quickly look at the polls just for reference, because I do know that it is, 11 points. So we do expect a Joe Biden victory here within probably about 10 points.
These are our last kind of likely states that are kind of we think are going to go to Joe Biden. There are a few more likely Democratic states that still need quite a bit of talking.
I agree with you. And another state I think I just realized we missed here, but another quote unquote obvious one is Maine All-State, which we do expect to go to Joe Biden. This went to Hillary Clinton by a very, very narrow margin. I believe it was about 2-3 points. She did terrible here, but I think that Biden will outperform her numbers. And, with the Maine's first district here, which is, again, a more densely populated region, Joe Biden should be able to carry this within a 5 to 15 point margin. So that one is likely. And I think that now we're done with all the likely Democratic states that didn't need that much discussing. Let's dig a little bit deeper now. Let's start with the state of Michigan. Michigan, I personally expect it to be the largest margin of victory for Joe Biden out of the 4 Rust Belt states: Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, and Michigan.
Interesting.
So actually, maybe with the exception of Minnesota, but I think it's going to flip to Joe Biden in a larger margin than Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. That I'll say. And
that is correct.
Yeah. Michigan has a pretty high African American electorate, and as you probably know, from what we've seen so far with Joe Biden's performance with African Americans, it is quite well. We saw that in the Democratic primary as well, when he was able to win the nomination from winning that African American vote in South Carolina's Democratic primary. Additionally, Michigan's polling numbers have been looking incredibly well for Joe Biden, 51.4% of the vote. Remember that we care a lot about the amount of support someone has. So Joe Biden has 51.4% support. That is over 50%. Now, from this, there's still an 8% undecided number, if I'm doing my math correctly, actually less than 8%. But still, because Joe Biden's over 51%, if the polling data is correct, that means that if every single undecided voter in the state of Michigan voted for Trump, he would still lose the state because Biden has over 51%. Now, I know that the number might be not exactly 51%, but it's probably going to be around there. Because again, the polling data was not wrong in 2016. The mainstream media got it wrong. And we can link a video actually to our video explaining why the polls weren't wrong in 2016.
Yep. And also just a general remark about the blue wall. And I just wanted to emphasize its importance. You may have seen people who are not into politics, you may have recently seen in the news that, these two candidates, Donald Trump and Joe Biden, are making final pushes in these 4 states. Well, that's because this is the easiest pathway to get 270 electoral votes, which is required to win the election. And these are the 4 deciding, the 4 deciding states that kind of show us who is going to win, because it's very hard to win without them. And right now, the fact that Joe Biden is leading in the polls is a very promising result for him. And right now, Donald Trump and Joe Biden are making final pushes in these states. For example, Donald Trump is in Pennsylvania today, and Joe Biden with Barack Obama are really trying to express the Democratic vote in Michigan. So you are going to see a lot of final pushes in these 4 states just because of how important they are.
Right, and I just do want to also add to that with the polling data here. Someone could say, oh, wasn't Hillary Clinton leading in Michigan? I mean, yes, but it was nowhere near this margin. She did not lead by 8.8 points. So you can't really compare 2016 to 2020 because that margin is completely different. All right, so we are going to put Michigan as likely. Another state we're putting as likely is Minnesota. We've kind of went back and forth on this one, on where to put it. At one point, Minnesota was looking pretty tight, and I believe Eric called it, a stairwell. Like you could literally see it dropping.
Mm-hmm.
But Joe Biden does seem to have regained his numbers in polling here. Now, talking about demographics of the state, Minnesota does have pretty rural areas, yes. However, those areas, although they're going to be a problem for the Republican Party in the future, I don't think they will be a problem this election for Joe Biden. I think I might have misspoke there, but what I meant to say was that the rural areas in Minnesota might present an issue to the Democrats in the future, but not this election cycle. And the reason for that is because there are big cities here that can outweigh those rural areas. And again, in addition to that, we do have the polling data to back that up. All right, Eric, do you have anything else to add to this?
To Minnesota, no. Other than the fact that I agree with you and that I think it's going to go to Joe Biden, along with, as you'll see, the rest of the blue wall. It's very promising for him, and that's where Joe Biden has the leg up.
Indeed. All right, Eric, why don't you now dig into the state of Wisconsin, which has been really interesting in the past few days.
Mm-hmm. It was so interesting. Well, specifically, the polls were so interesting that 538 that Luke made an article that Lucas sent to me, and he was like, "Listen, check this out. This is almost unreal." And as you see, A+ pollster, Washington Post, and ABC News put Biden up by 17 points in Wisconsin. Once again, this is one of the more conservative states in the blue wall, and this A+ pollster gave Biden 17 points. And in this article that I read that 538 produced after these polls were released, they did themselves say that these polls were kind of an outlier despite their ranking. They're kind of an outlier. As you see, there are other polls like an AB pollster that put to like 4 and 5, which makes a bit more sense and is a bit more consistent with the rest of the pollsters. And although it may be an outlier, it's a very good sign for Joe Biden that that he has a lot of the vote here, and the Democrats really resonate with what he has to say. If somehow there is a pollster that gives Biden a 17-point lead against Donald Trump, once again, Wisconsin was one of the most conservative states in the blue wall that managed to go to Donald Trump, and he's having a lot of trouble reinforcing and getting ahead of Joe Biden after coronavirus and civil unrest over racial tensions that Donald Trump that it was believed that Donald Trump caused.
I agree with you with that. I want to also take a look at something really interesting. The 538 forecast gives Joe Biden, look at this, 94% chance of winning this state. Isn't that unreal? At
Yeah.
one point, it was 68 to 32. Now we're at a point where it's 94 to 6. And I'm going a little bit off topic here, but if I'm looking at if I'm remembering this correctly, I believe that's the same amount of chance that Joe Biden has of winning Alaska. Actually, it's actually more. Joe Biden has a 10%. Joe Biden has a 10% higher chance of winning Alaska than Donald Trump has of winning the state of Wisconsin. That's pretty unreal right now. Anyway, heading back to the map, Wisconsin, we're going to put this one as lean Democratic. We do think that that pollster is an outlier. We're expecting a win of around like 5 points, potentially more than 5 points. It's basically borderline unlikely right now, but we're not going to move it quite yet. All right, let's now head to the state of Pennsylvania. Eric, why don't you also discuss Pennsylvania as well?
Yeah, so as I said earlier, Donald Trump is making his final push and campaigning in multiple counties in Pennsylvania today. We do think that in this election, Joe Biden has a pretty decent stronghold in here, especially comparing to the stronghold Hillary Clinton had in 2016, which is why we keep saying they are not the same elections with the same patterns. Right now, Biden has a fairly steady lead in the polls by 5 points, and Muhlenberg College puts Biden up by 5 points, and we think it's going to be a little bit before below five, maybe like four-ish. But we do think that Biden has a very good stronghold in the polls because just in general, in all states, turnout is just through the roof this election. 90 million people, at least 90 million people have voted already, and it's not even November 30th. And this general increase in turnout in all of these states, it causes, different results. And, some people who didn't want to vote might vote for Joe Biden, or it might help Donald Trump. There's no certainty for now, but this increase in turnout and just general change of appreciation in Donald Trump in some of the counties in Pennsylvania is what puts Joe Biden over the edge.
Yep, I think that as well. Generally, higher turnout does lead to a more favorable performance for the Democrats. For example, in 2018, the midterm turnouts were at presidential levels, which did greatly benefit the Democrats, definitely in the House. They could have done better in the Senate, but I think they did very well in the House. In addition, with Pennsylvania, I think it's around 4 point victory. They're going to go very hard here. But if Eric, I'm not sure if Eric mentioned it already, but it's essentially a kind of a split with Pennsylvania, with Western Pennsylvania and Central Pennsylvania being more rural, more Republican, while Eastern Pennsylvania, with all the big cities, Philadelphia, for example, they are going to be a lot more Democratic. But we do expect Joe Biden to be able to carry the state at the end of the day. All right, let's now head to the state of. Let's start with, what do you think? Let's go with Nebraska's 2nd District.
Sure.
Nebraska's 2nd District is a lot more densely populated than the other districts in Nebraska. Nebraska is one of the few states with Maine that splits its electoral votes based on congressional district, one for each congressional district, and also 2 for the whole state. And from Nebraska's 2nd District, it's a very, very educated, college-educated district. And from that, we do think that Joe Biden can carry the district probably within 1 to 5 points. And the reason for that is because the more college-educated voters do tend to vote for the Democrats on actually all levels. For example, Nebraska's 2nd District's House race this year is considered to be competitive as well. The last time a Democrat carried the 2nd District was Barack Obama in 2008. We do think that Joe Biden will also be carrying this district. And not to mention the polling data we have here as well, which has been quite interesting. Let me actually narrow this to the 2nd District. A 6.2 point lead right now in the state of Nebraska 2nd District, including A+ pollster with a 7-point Biden lead. I don't think Jorgensen has a 4-point share here.
Yeah,
but this is pretty significant from what we've seen.
And recently, there's actually been a story that Biden has kind of attacked Trump over him kind of stranding his voters in the cold of Omaha, where Nebraska 2nd District is. Donald Trump was campaigning here, and there was some sort of mishap that apparently left voters stranded, and Joe Biden kind of attacked Donald Trump for that, which shows that, first of all, Donald Trump is campaigning in this district, and Biden is doing his best to kind of attack his candidate to seem like the more favorable one, and there are a lot of instances like that where he makes that happen.
Interesting. All right, now while we're on the discussion of districts, let's head to Maine 2nd District, which again is the other state that splits its electoral votes, and it's also quite competitive. Polling is very much closer here, and it is more favorable for Donald Trump, with the reason for that being that Donald Trump does very well in the rural areas, and as like most Republicans do. And in this case, Maine's 2nd District is a very sparsely populated rural district. You can tell that from the size of the district in Maine. And as a result, we do think this is going to go to Trump, but it's going to be a lot less than what we once predicted. We were thinking before that, maybe lean victory, maybe even likely victory for Trump. But from the data we've been getting, which has been honestly a little bit surprising to us, showing Biden up by 3, 4, 4. There's been very few polls, with the exception of this one, that have showed Trump up. So with that reason, we are going to be putting this one as tilt Republican.
Mm-hmm. And just for context, Joe Biden has won the election already with 279 electoral votes.
Interesting. Yep. All right. Let's now head to... All right, Eric, what state should we head to?
That's a good question. I think we should go to Arizona.
All right, and you can take this one.
Yep. So we think that Joe Biden is going to take this in a lean margin. Arizona would be technically a new type of Democratic state. We have seen fairly incredible results from the polls, considering that Donald Trump had a very significant lead in the polls and during the election results in this state. And now, once again, ever since this virus took off, Biden has been in the lead at some points in 5-point margins. You see right now Lucas is hovering. It used to be quite competitive, and Donald Trump was in the lead. But once again, these past few months, Biden has essentially took off, and not once has Donald Trump been in the lead ever since. I feel like once again, that turnout number is going to really help Joe Biden, as Lucas also pointed out. And, the Latinos and Latinas, they kind of split for each one. Republicans say that they have a lot of the Latino support, and Democrats say likewise.
Interesting point made there. Regarding the Latinos, Biden is definitely not performing as well as Hillary Clinton did, but we still do think that Biden can win the state of Arizona due to his strength with white voters, white uneducated voters that Hillary Clinton couldn't get in 2016. Polling data here, yes, Biden doesn't have above 50%, which means that the undecideds could potentially split in a way that causes Trump to win, according to this data. But these polls do show Biden up, and that is definitely a good sign for him, considering that polls in 2016 and I believe 2018 as well, both underestimated the Republicans in this state. So we are going to put this one as lean Democratic. All right. Let's head now to the state of Texas. So Texas is another interesting state. It used to be a very, very solid Republican state, but that's since changed a lot recently. And a part of that reason is also here, the white college uneducated voters that we do expect to go to Biden in a pretty good margin. Also the suburbs here, we do also predict will go to Biden that will go to Biden. So we think the margin here will be between 1 to 5 points. At one point, it was definitely tighter. I think we had this one as tilt Republican before, but it has since been now a Trump lead. At one point, we did see Biden leading, but that was back in the summer, so we still had a lot of time for that to change, and that did end up changing. But there was one point, I believe, a couple of weeks ago, I think 1 week ago, where it was definitely tighter than we expected. 25th, we saw it at an even. And also Texas has also consistently, the polls here have consistently been overestimating the Republicans here, as we saw in the Ted Cruz versus Beto O'Rourke election, where Beto lost by just about 2 to 3%, and the polls did not show that here. They showed a larger margin of him losing. So we are putting this one as a lean. All right, Eric, why don't you talk about the state of, you can head to Iowa.
Sure, but just one remark about just like the general states in the South, essentially. One that polling is getting tighter. That is going to be a common theme throughout the states such as Texas and North Carolina and Florida specifically. Polls are very much tightening up in these states, and that's a general pattern. Polls tend to tighten up very closely before the presidential election because a lot more undecided people are, giving their input this close to the election, and there are other reasons too. But with that being said, these three states is a lot more needed by Donald Trump than Joe Biden because Joe Biden's pathway is a lot more realistic and a lot more likely to happen than Donald Trump. With Joe Biden winning the blue wall, it's just it's going to, we feel like it's going to happen in a, like, we're pretty sure, we're putting them as likely and lean states, which is, very good for Joe Biden. Donald Trump is the one who needs Florida, North Carolina, and Texas in order to even come close to getting to 70. And if Biden takes one of those three states, there is a very small chance that Donald Trump can win. All right, let's talk about Iowa. We think that it is going to go in the lean tilt area. Lucas and I were debating because these polls have been very interesting. Once again, polls are tightening up this close to the election. And at one point, Joe Biden in these past few days has been up by 1.6. That has since narrowed down to 0.2. Iowa has a fairly conservative base. Its population is like approximately more than 90% white. So it's not really a state with a lot of diversity. And just in general, Donald Trump took the state by 9 points or something like that. And that was pretty record breaking in Iowa. Right now, we don't think he's going to take it in the same margin. But with these polls, he might even take it in low single digits, maybe 3-4 points. But Lucas and I really weren't sure as to put it either as lean or tilt. But I think we're going to keep it lean just because of because of Donald Trump's base in the state.
Yeah, I was also thinking somewhere between lean and tilt. I was thinking actually maybe a 2 to 1 point victory from what we're seeing right now. Iowa was definitely interesting in that it was like a pretty large margin before, like, around here 1.8, and then for some reason in the beginning of October, Biden's lead here just jumps up to 1.3, 1.4. I think Iowa will be pretty close. We're gonna keep an eye on Iowa for sure. We're gonna put it as lean for now, but we'll check back on it within the next few days for sure. All right, now let's head to the state of Ohio. Ohio is also interesting because throughout this election cycle, Ohio seemed to be more looking favorable for Biden than Iowa was. Wow, I messed up the words there, but essentially what we were seeing was at many points, actually, we saw Biden leading in Ohio in the polls. Look at this. In the summer, for like 2 months, Biden was up by a pretty decent margin. Of course, that did narrow. Beginning of September, we saw Trump leading by, a point or so. And then now at the end of September, beginning of October, we did see Biden taking the lead once again. But then Trump regained, and he is having a pretty good lead here, I believe, as well. Fox News is a pretty good pollster. Trump up at 2, Trump up by 3. But this was pretty interesting. The Rasmussen pollster this poll was definitely very interesting for me to see because Rasmussen is considered to be a very, very, pretty right-leaning here. Yeah, the president tends to tweet out the Rasmussen polls because they make him look the best. But that was definitely really interesting to see. But we do think that Ohio will go probably between, 1 to 5 point margin. But it's definitely not safe. It's definitely not as large a margin as we once thought, like when we started this channel. For sure. All right, Eric, how about you head to Georgia now?
So, just like I talked about in last week's election prediction, Georgia's turnout has been a lot more noticeable. Turnout in general is going to be very high, but in Georgia, as I said, it was like a 134% increase, which is remarkable. Triple digit percentage increase. Quite interesting to see. And what's also interesting to see is Biden's recent gain in the polls here. Joe Biden has 1.6 percent of the vote here. Once again, not over 50, so we're not sure how the undecided is going to vote in this election. October 28th, 3 A+ Monmouth University pollsters put Biden up by 2, by 4, and by 5. And if I can do math, that would be approximately a 3-point-ish average lead for Joe Biden. Once again, pollsters probably in Georgia, you probably overestimate the Democrat a little, and we do think that Donald Trump will win, but in a very small margin. We're going to put Georgia as tilt Republican because these polls are very close, and turnout in African Americans and in general are very high this election, and that might be what makes it switch over to the Democrats. But Georgia will also keep a good eye on.
All right, and now let's take a look at Florida, which has been quite interesting here. Florida, we've definitely seen tighten up since the summer. And this summer, we made a video with Ethan Blog, I believe, about Florida going to Biden. It looked very good for him at that point. A 7-point lead in Florida is unheard of in this battleground state. 7 points, 8 points at some points, but it's since definitely narrowed up. From the data we're getting from the polling, it has also been looking, definitely not the best for Joe Biden right now, but it's been pretty good. 4 point, 6 point, 5 point, 5 point, 6, 4 point. Okay, right. And the other thing that we do want to add here is the recent early voting. And I believe we are not seeing good numbers for the Democrats in the Miami-Dade County. If you don't know already, Florida is all about the margins, all about the county and counties and how much people vote in those counties and the margins of that. There's really not that many swing counties. Now, the problem with Democrats not doing well in Miami-Dade is Miami-Dade's vote for the Democrats it should, if the Democrats are, doing well in the state of Florida, outweigh the other Republican counties in Florida. And if that's not happening, then that's not too good for them right now. And I don't think we are seeing good signs of the county of Miami-Dade right now. As a result, I think we are going to move the state to toss-up. Our good friends, God of Politics, made a video on this explaining it. I'll actually leave a link in the description to that because he does a great explanation of what the early voting and the votes we're getting in from Miami-Dade is looking like right now. You can go check that out. But we are going to move this one to toss-up. Is there anything else, Eric?
Yeah, and something interesting that's happening in this election that we haven't been seeing in other elections is that the senior vote in Florida in general is in support of Biden a lot more noticeably than before. And could that play into the election? Most certainly. There are a lot of senior citizens that retire and move to Florida who are residing there right now, and who knows how that could sway the election.
Very interesting. Yeah. That's a good point to make because usually senior voters do tend to vote for the Republican candidate, and they do tend to be more conservative. And I want to also add another point with Latino voters, actually I say Latinx voters. As I mentioned earlier in this video, Joe Biden is not doing that well with them, and Florida does have a lot of Latinx voters, so that is not looking too great for him in the state of Florida. But we are going to put this one as a toss-up right now. Heading to our final state of North Carolina, which we have also been back and forth on whether we put it as tilt D or as toss-up or maybe even as tilt R. I think we are going to put this one as a toss-up. What do you think on that, Eric?
Yeah, so North Carolina is very, very much back and forth. On one hand, we have Donald Trump, who's really trying to reinforce the vote here and campaigning a lot. On the other hand, we have 2 A+ pollsters who gave Biden a 5 and 6 point lead. But let's go back to the average, where Biden only has 49% of the vote and not 50%, meaning that if all the undecided voters voted for Trump, he would technically win by a very small margin, but it would be a win for him. There is a lot of back and forth a lot of back and forth here to consider, but once again, as I've said earlier in this video, North Carolina is a lot more important to Donald Trump than it is for Joe Biden. If Donald Trump wants to come even close to getting to Joe Biden, he needs to win Florida, Texas, Georgia, and North Carolina. That would really make him a lot closer and would give him a lot more of a chance to win.
I completely agree with that, and this is a little bit off topic, but I remember in 2016 when we started to see Donald Trump possibly winning. The election was when we saw North Carolina going red, when we saw Florida going red. That's when we kind of had an indication, maybe he does have a chance of winning. And these two states are going to be very crucial on election night, because I do think we will get the results of Florida by election night. They will be crucial in seeing, does Trump really have a chance of winning? If Biden wins Florida on election night, then I'm almost certain that Joe Biden will win the election. If Donald Trump were to win Florida, then we would have to wait a few more days to see who wins the election. But that is the end of the video for today. Sorry that took a very long time, as always, with our presidential election predictions videos now. But now it's currently 290 votes, electoral votes for Joe Biden, and 204 electoral votes for Donald Trump. Thank you all so much for watching this video. We're sorry that it's been such a long time since we've made a video. But if you like this video, please hit the like button. If you like our content, please hit subscribe. We'll see you in our next video tomorrow.
Happy Halloween and see ya.